It's 6 p.m. on Tuesday here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hwang Ji-hye. And these are the top stories we're following at this hour. President Park Geun-hye emphasizes the two Koreas will be able to move toward peace and reunification under the condition they uphold their recent landmark deal. As the South Korean Red Cross surveys the status of family members separated by the Korean War, the Unification Ministry says reunions will likely take place at Mount Geunhye. Plus, South Korean exports in August dropped by the biggest margin since 2009, when the country was hit hard by the global financial crisis. A week on from the two Koreas' landmark agreement to work towards improving relations, President Park Geun-hye says following up on the deal will help bring peace and stability to the Korean peninsula. Choi You-sun starts us off.
At Tuesday's cabinet meeting, President Park emphasized that adhering to the recent inter-Korean deal to defuse tensions will end 7 decades of tension on the peninsula, placing both Koreas on a path to peaceful reunification.
이번에 북한과의 합의를 이끌어낸 힘은 우리 국민들께서 신뢰와 믿음으로 지켜봐 주셨기 때문에 가능했습니다. 앞으로 합의 이행 과정에서도 변함없는 성원을 부탁드립니다.
Speaking publicly for the first time about the deal, President Park said that to help heal their sorrow, reunions for families separated by the Korean War, which is included in the agreement, should resume. She said the upcoming reunion should pave the way for some 66,000 family members living in the South to meet their long-lost loved ones on a regular basis. President Park's comments come as Red Cross officials from the two Koreas are set to hold preparatory talks next Monday. On the domestic front, President Park spoke about reviving the economy and her labor reform drive.
이번 남북 간 합의로 한반도 긴장 완화의 계기가 마련된 만큼 이제 경제 활성화와 새로운 대한민국을 만드는 개혁 작업에 힘을 쏟아야 합니다.
She called on workers, management, and government who recently resumed labor reform negotiations to make compromises for the country and the people. One contentious issue involves the government's push to implement a salary peak system of extending the retirement age while reducing workers' salaries. This is expected to encourage employers to hire more young people. Stressing that Korea's future depends on it, President Park said it is every Korean's duty to provide good employment opportunities for the country's young people. Choi You-sun, Arirang News.
And the South Korean Red Cross is moving quick to push through the family reunions. It started compiling the list of candidates to meet with their long-lost family members. Seoul's Unification Ministry says the event is likely to take place at a meeting room at Mount Geunhye. Kim Hyun-bin reports.
The South Korean Red Cross has begun the selection process for a planned reunion of separated families from the Korean War. The move comes on the heels of a landmark inter-Korean agreement reached last week. Red Cross officials said they'll contact some 66,000 surviving South Koreans with family members in North Korea to learn their health status and gain permission to send their profiles to North Korean officials. Red Cross officials from the two sides are scheduled to hold working-level talks next Monday to finalize the details of the reunion. Seoul's Unification Ministry says it aims to negotiate holding reunions on a regular basis and expanding the number of families permitted to participate per round. The last set of reunions, held nearly 2 years ago, was limited to just 200 families over 2 rounds. The ministry added that the reunion will most likely be held in early October, as there is a high probability that Pyongyang will propose that the reunion be held at Mount Geunhye in North Korea. Time is ticking for family members separated since the end of the Korean War in 1953, as most are over the age of 70. Roughly half of the remaining 130,000 applicants have passed away since the end of 2014. Since 2000, 19 rounds of reunions for separated families have been held, with the last occurring in February of 2014. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The top diplomats of South Korea and the United States have held their third bilateral talks this year in Alaska, discussing ways to tackle North Korea's nuclear program. Yoon Byung-se and John Kerry touched on the importance of China playing its part. Hwang Sung-hee tells us more.
South Korean Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se and his U.S. counterpart John Kerry have agreed on the importance of China's constructive role in dealing with North Korea. This at a bilateral meeting in Anchorage on Monday, just days before President Park Geun-hye attends a military parade in Beijing to commemorate the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II. President Park's attendance had raised concerns that it may damage relations with Washington. The U.S. has declined to take part in the event, seeing it as a display of China's military prowess. But at Monday's talks, Yoon explained the reasons behind President Park's attendance, to which Kerry expressed sufficient understanding. Officials say Minister Yoon proposed bolstering trilateral cooperation with China to prevent North Korea making further progress on its nuclear weapons program. Beijing has been reluctant to get involved in three-way engagement due to its relationship with Pyongyang. Chinese President Xi Jinping is scheduled to visit the U.S. for talks with U.S. President Barack Obama at the end of this month. That meeting will be followed by summit talks between the leaders of South Korea and the U.S. in Washington in October. The two ministers agreed to use these occasions as opportunities to continue their cooperation against North Korea's nuclear ambitions. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
Now here in South Korea, the National Assembly kicked off its 100-day regular session Tuesday. Rival parties are pushing to achieve their own political agenda ahead of next year's general elections. Kim Young-gil has more.
The ruling Saenuri Party urged the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy Party to support making this final regular session of the 19th National Assembly one replete with fruitful results.
Stabilizing people's livelihoods, boosting the economy, reforming the labor market, reviewing the 2016 budget and FTAs. These are the key agendas. We ask for the opposition parties' full cooperation during the regular session.
One said the ruling bloc is especially determined to make the labor market more flexible to make it easier for young people to find jobs. The government also wants to reduce the gap between regular workers who enjoy excessive job security and good pay, and non-regular workers who are usually paid less and have less secure job positions. However, the MPAD said its top priority is to normalize corporate taxes and change how powerful family-controlled conglomerates are run.
It is vital to revamp the governance structure of the conglomerates so that big and small firms can coexist. The current corporate tax system gives too much tax reductions to conglomerates, even with greater profit gains.
He said the corporate tax system should be shaped to enable more taxes being collected from conglomerates that continue to make headway in their profits. He also stressed that if conglomerates make unfair deals with small and medium-sized companies, then the government should strictly impose regulations to foster a fair market economy. The two parties will also be tasked with inspecting government offices in the coming weeks and reviewing next year's budget, as the Assembly must strike a deal on budgetary matters by the legal deadline of December 2nd. Kim Young-gil, Arirang News.
Korean exports plunged by the biggest margin in 6 years last month. The heavy fall largely comes on the back of weak demand in China. Kwon So-ah reports.
With outbound shipments only reaching $39.3 billion, there's little surprise Korea's exports posted yet another negative growth this August. Korea's trade ministry says the situation is pretty bad, as it is the first time since 2011 the monthly figure dropped below $40 billion. Export growth last month was down almost 15% from the same month last year and was also a huge decline from July. Also, with imports dropping to even lower levels, more than 18% year-on-year, Korea posted another trade surplus for the 43rd consecutive month. The Trade Ministry attributed the decline to low crude oil prices and sluggish exports in the shipping industry, which dipped to more than 50% on-year. Another factor was weak demand from China due to its slow economic growth and the recent Tianjin port explosions. But there is some good news on the China front.
Recently, Korea's consumption sector has been doing well in China. Exports in new products with high potential, such as OLED and FHD displays and cosmetics, are growing rapidly.
Another positive factor could also come this month with the U.S. Central Bank's decision on a key interest rate hike expected soon.
If the US raises its interest rate, that's proof that the US economy is improving, meaning Korea's exports to the US could go up, as well as due to a weakening Korean won against the dollar.
Along with those expectations and soon-to-be-released new cars, the government says September's figures look to be better, but it will not be until after then that the effects will show. The Trade Ministry says the final quarter usually accounts for around a third of yearly exports. That's why it's too early to predict whether Korea will reach its annual trade volume goal of $1 trillion. Kwon So-ah, Arirang News.
Staying on the economic front, Korea's consumer prices continue to hover in the 0% range as low global oil prices and a drop in utility costs create downward pressure. Kim Min-ji has more.
Adding to concerns that Asia's fourth largest economy may have already entered a deflationary period, growth in consumer prices remained in the 0% range for the 9th straight month in August. Statistics Korea says inflation was only at 0.7% last month from the same period a year ago, unchanged from July's figure. The agency attributed the low inflation number to low global oil prices, as well as a drop in utility fees.
Agricultural prices rose 3.4% on year, while manufacturing goods dipped 0.1%. Prices of electricity, water, and gas fell 11.3% from a year ago.
The Statistics Office brushed off deflationary concerns, saying that core inflation, which doesn't include volatile food and energy prices, was still up 2.1% on year. However, experts say looking at the current economic conditions, consumer prices will continue to run low for the time being.
Two main factors which have kept inflation low are the prolonged state of low global oil prices and the weak economy, which hasn't been able to pick up speed, limiting consumer demand. This situation will linger throughout the year.
The expert added that while the government's stimulus measures may have a positive effect on economic indicators in the latter half of the year, it doesn't necessarily mean an improvement in the economy, as there will be a low base effect. He also called for preemptive measures to tackle underlying uncertainties that could threaten the health of the Korean economy, such as China's slowdown. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
A new-look Samsung C&T started operations on Tuesday as the de facto holding company of Samsung Group, Korea's biggest conglomerate. Samsung says the merger that formed the new company adds to the group's synergy, but many see it as a way for Samsung heir apparent to solidify his grip on the business group. Song Ji-sun has the details.
Samsung Group's construction arm Samsung C&T opens a new chapter in its history this week, after its recent merger with Samsung's fashion affiliate Cheil Industries. With a market capitalization of $23 billion, Samsung C&T becomes the fourth biggest entity on the local boards after Samsung Electronics, Hyundai Motor, and Korea Electric Power Corporation. After a matter of months since Cheil Industries went public, Samsung C&T won approval for the merger from 70% of its shareholders in mid-July. Lee Jae-yong, the only son of the group's ailing patriarch Lee Geunhye, is the biggest winner from the merger. He immediately acquires a 16% stake in the new de facto holding company. The group has also simplified its complex web of cross-shareholding through the restructuring and saved billions of dollars in inheritance taxes in the process. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing as the company was locked in a 2-month-long legal battle with US-based Elliott Associates, who sought to block the move, claiming the terms of the merger did not match the value of the shares. Samsung C&T hopes to achieve annual growth of 10% with the synergies stemming from the merger, to hit $55 billion in revenue by 2020. Its ambitious goal is to foster the biosector as a new growth engine for the group.
Although Samsung claims the merger is aimed at creating more synergy between their business sectors, shareholders are aware that's not the only purpose. Samsung still has a few more M&A scenarios in the works to further strengthen Lee Jae-young's control over the group, especially to increase his stakes at Samsung Electronics.
For the time being, the new holdings firm will be headed by 4 chief executives from the 2 units in charge of each division: construction, trading, fashion, and resorts. A new chairperson will be elected later this week. 송지선, Arirang News.
Korea has a new mega bank following today's completion of the merger between Hana Bank and Korea Exchange Bank. KEB Hana Bank, as it will now be called, has become Korea's biggest bank with assets of over $250 billion, surpassing Uri, KB국민, and Shinhan banks. The merger had been a few years in the making since Hana Financial Group acquired KEB from the U.S.-based private equity fund Lone Star in 2012. The merger between the formerly 5th and 6th largest banks had faced a number of legal challenges from the KEB union. But an agreement was reached in July and moves were swiftly made to complete the merger. KEB Hana Bank now boasts 945 national branches, over 15,000 employees, and 127 overseas offices in 24 countries. That brings us to the end of our newscast. More updates coming up at 10 p.m. Korea time. Stay tuned and goodbye for now.